Hey, Joe. Hey, Deb, welcome. All right, so I'm going to put up a poll question here. Hi, Nunya. Thank you for asking. I'm not sure how to answer. I can't share any details about what happened. Let's just say that sometimes we deal with situations where our students get themselves into situations facing circumstances and consequences that we really wouldn't want for them. And that's what we were dealing with last night. And it's painful when you're trying to help and look out for each and every kid and they end up in something like that. Yeah, so the reason for the poll question, it was suggested to me that maybe we should try that on YouTube, doing a Zoom, getting everybody on where I can, add in a screen, kind of like Hollywood Squares, get everyone's faces in there and be able to have everyone engage verbally as we're putting questions to Quinn. So I was just kind of playing with it right now. That's why you were seeing my face over there, because I've got the Zoom window up to see if I can operate the Zoom window simultaneously and still get my audio on there, on that, and my video. Have everything working. It looks like that would work. It's something we could do. So depending on how everyone feels about that, we may give that a try soon. Pop stars story time. I sound like a weatherman. That's interesting. Haven't gotten that one before. Yeah, it does get a little hectic on Zoom. Let's see if we can get our Quinn window back up. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, I think that's the first time I've been accused of looking or sounding like a weatherman.
What's on your mind today? I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Welcome, Lelaine, Shannon. All right, Quinn, Steve's out with a good question already. Are Donald Trump's suggestions for the Palestinians violations of the Geneva Convention? Search for information on this. This is about Trump suggesting that all of the Palestinians be relocated outside of Gaza in other countries, and that the U.S. take over Gaza.
President Trump's proposal to relocate Palestinians from Gaza and have the U.S. take control raises significant legal concerns. International law, particularly the Fourth Geneva Convention, prohibits the forcible transfer of civilian populations from occupied territories. Experts argue that such actions could violate these provisions. I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Okay, we need to try something else there, see if we can get a new instance of Quinn going that isn't having so many problems. I'll see if I can turn Quinn's volume up a little bit. It might be hard for me to do without turning up the music volume too. Hey Quinn, you back with us?
I'm here, ready to keep rolling with the questions. What's next?
Can you explain the Native American legend of Mount Graham in Arizona and the Vatican Lucifer telescope on top of it?
Mount Graham in Arizona is considered sacred by the Apache people, specifically the Western Apache, who believe it is home to spiritual beings and serves as a place of powerful ancestral significance. The mountain is part of their traditional lands, and they have long opposed development there, including the construction of astronomical observatories. The Vatican's connection to Mount Graham comes through the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, VATT, which is part of the Mount Graham International Observatory. The controversy often revolves around a separate instrument at the site, the Large Binocular Telescope, LBT, which has an infrared camera system known as Lucifer, later renamed Lucy. This unfortunately named instrument led to conspiracy theories suggesting a connection between the Vatican and something sinister. In reality, Lucy is just a technical acronym for the instrument, and the Vatican's telescope is separate from it. Despite the legends and the controversies, the presence of these telescopes on sacred land remains a point of contention between scientists and indigenous communities, as it highlights the broader issue of land use and respect for native traditions.
Hi Maria, welcome. Let's go ahead and go to Steve's question. Quinn, Steve is asking, does Article 5 take effect if one NATO country attacks another NATO country?
No. Article 5 of NATO's treaty is specifically about collective defense against an attack from an external party, not internal conflicts between NATO members. If one NATO country were to attack another, it wouldn't automatically trigger Article 5. Instead, it would likely lead to diplomatic crises, potential sanctions, and NATO-led negotiations to resolve the conflict. If the situation escalated severely, NATO could take collective action, but it wouldn't be under Article 5.
Brother B would like you to give the definition of ethnic cleansing and give us any similarities to Donald Trump's plan for Gaza.
Ethnic cleansing involves the systematic removal of an ethnic, racial, or religious group from a specific area, often through force or intimidation, to create an ethnically homogeneous region. This definition is supported by sources like Britannica. President Trump's recent proposal for Gaza, which includes relocating Palestinian residents to neighboring countries, has been criticized as potentially amounting to ethnic cleansing. Critics argue that forcibly moving populations to achieve ethnic homogeneity mirrors the tactics of ethnic cleansing.
Nunya Ray asks, is the Office of the Inspector General now investigating what Musk and his hackers did while accessing Treasury computer systems? Please search for information before answering.
Yes, the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General is auditing the Department of Government Efficiency's DOE access to federal payment systems. This follows concerns about potential unauthorized data access and system alterations by DOGE personnel.
What can you tell us about the asteroid that is supposed to come close to Earth in 2032? Please search for updates about this asteroid having an increased chance of striking the Earth.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Can you please search for information about the asteroid that has an increased chance of hitting the Earth in 2032, and tell us about it? What new information is there about this asteroid that might hit the Earth in 2032?
Asteroid 2024 YR4, about 150 feet wide, has a 2.3% chance of hitting Earth in December 2032.
What will happen if it hits the Earth, say, in a populated area?
If a 150-foot wide asteroid like 2024 YR4 were to hit a populated area, it would cause significant destruction, similar to the Tunguska event in 1908, which flattened around 800 square miles of forest. The impact could release energy equivalent to several megatons of TNT, creating a massive explosion, widespread fires, and a shockwave capable of leveling buildings. If it struck near a major city, casualties could be in the tens or even hundreds of thousands, depending on the location and population density. However, space agencies are monitoring it closely and may take action if the risk remains high.
Ellen wants to know, since Donald Trump is into changing names, what would he rename the United States of America?
As of now, there is no public information indicating that President Donald Trump has proposed renaming the United States of America. However, he has initiated other name changes, such as renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Has anyone else suggested renaming the United States of America?
Yes, various people and movements have suggested renaming the United States of America throughout history, often for ideological, political, or cultural reasons. Some examples include indigenous and decolonization movements. Some activists have proposed names that reflect indigenous heritage, such as Turtle Island, which is a name some Native American tribes use for North America. The Confederacy. During the U.S. Civil War, the seceding Southern states named their government the Confederate States of America rather than the United States. The Kingdom of America. Some monarchists have suggested that if the U.S. had developed into a monarchy rather than a republic, it might have been named something along those lines. Corporate and satirical proposals. Occasionally, there are humorous or dystopian suggestions, like renaming the country to reflect corporate sponsorship or political shifts. If you're asking whether there's a serious, modern push to rename the U.S., there isn't one, with mainstream political traction. Would you want to workshop a new name for fun?
Not really. I'd kind of like to keep the one that we have. Can you tell us on the 28th, what entities are we planning on boycotting for 24 hours?
The planned boycott on the 28th is targeting major corporations and entities tied to unethical practices, corporate greed, or political influence. While the exact list may vary depending on the organizing groups, some common targets for one-day economic boycotts include large banks involved in political lobbying, major retailers with exploitative labor practices, companies that have heavily influenced government policies at the expense of the public, social media platforms tied to disinformation or censorship concerns. Would you like me to look up the latest confirmed targets for the 28th to make sure you have the most up-to-date list?
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
On February 28, 2025, a nationwide economic blackout is planned, urging consumers to avoid shopping at major retailers like Target, Amazon, and Walmart. This boycott aims to protest these companies scaling back their diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives. Activists encourage supporting small, local businesses instead.
What is the planet Nibiru, also known as planet number 9?
Nibiru, sometimes referred to as Planet 9, is a hypothetical planet in our solar system that has been the subject of both pseudoscience and astronomical speculation. Nibiru in popular culture. In conspiracy theories, Nibiru is often described as a large hidden planet on a collision course with Earth, leading to apocalyptic scenarios. These claims have been debunked by scientists. The idea gained traction in the early 2000s, but was tied to incorrect interpretations of ancient Sumerian texts and a misreading of the Mayan calendar's end date in 2012. Planet 9, astronomy. In 2016, astronomers proposed the existence of a Planet 9, not the same as Nibiru in the conspiracy context. This theoretical planet, much farther out than Neptune, could explain the unusual orbits of distant objects in the Kuiper Belt. While evidence suggests something of this nature could exist, it has not been directly observed yet. Do you find this concept intriguing, or is it more of a curiosity for you?
I just asked because Brother B wanted to know.
Gotcha. If Brother B has more questions about Nibiru or anything else, feel free to send them my way. Always happy to dive into these wild theories.
Do we have any way of knowing where the asteroid might strike the Earth in 2032?
As of now, predictions about where an asteroid might strike in 2032 are highly speculative. While we have tools to track asteroids and predict their general trajectories, pinpointing an exact location on Earth is difficult. The asteroid's path can be affected by many factors, including gravity, solar radiation, and other celestial objects. There is a particular asteroid, 2023 DW, that has been flagged for its potential to impact Earth in 2032. However, scientists are still monitoring its orbit, and the odds of it striking Earth remain low, with the possibility continually being reassessed. If it were to hit, its impact site could depend on the asteroid's final course, which could range from oceanic areas to sparsely populated landmasses. Astronomers are working on improving detection and tracking technology, but until more data comes in, it's hard to say where exactly it might land. Would you want me to keep an eye on new developments as they come out?
That's not necessary.
All right, if anything else comes up, feel free to ask. I'm here.
Let's go with this one. Considering the cumulative destruction in life and infrastructure by wars throughout history, how advanced might civilization be right now without war?
If humanity had avoided wars throughout history, it's likely that civilization could have advanced much faster, especially in terms of technological, social, and economic progress. War has often diverted resources, talent, and energy that could have otherwise been spent on innovation and development. Technological progress. Many advancements were driven by wartime needs, but at the cost of civilian lives and stability. Without the destruction of wars, it's possible that scientific and technological fields, like medicine, transportation, and communications, could have advanced even further, with a greater focus on peaceful applications. Human capital. Millions of people, including brilliant scientists, engineers, and thinkers, were lost or displaced due to war. These losses slowed down innovation and social progress, as populations were decimated and societies were forced to rebuild. Economic development. War often causes economic upheaval, draining resources and hindering development. Without the need to fund wars, countries might have been able to invest more in education, infrastructure, and social welfare. Cultural growth. Peace would have allowed for a more stable cultural exchange, more investments in arts, philosophy, and education without the interruptions of conflict. In short, the world could have been far more advanced without the destructive cycle of war, likely achieving higher levels of cooperation, technological sophistication, and overall human well-being. What do you think we'd be capable of now without the weight of historical wars?
Let me remind you, there's no need to ask me questions in return, okay, Quinn?
Got it. No more questions from me.
All right, Quinn. Brother B is asking, according to the Bible, Noah's Ark was made of gopher wood. The only place to find gopher wood is in Florida. Is that right? Keep your answer concise.
No, that's not correct. Gopher wood is a term mentioned in the Bible, but its exact meaning or type of wood is unclear. Some interpretations suggest it could refer to a specific kind of wood or a term for wood that was readily available at the time. There's no evidence that gopher wood specifically comes from Florida. The term remains a mystery.
Lelaine wants to know, what is your speculation about the possibility of another civil war in the United States?
The idea of a second civil war in the U.S. is a topic of intense debate, but it's important to note that while there are significant political and social divisions, the situation today is very different from the one leading up to the Civil War in the 1860s. Polarization. The U.S. is deeply polarized, but this mostly manifests in ideological clashes rather than physical conflict. System of governance. Unlike the pre-Civil War era, the U.S. has a robust system of checks and balances in place, which helps to prevent large-scale breakdowns of order. Cultural and political tensions. While tensions are high, many people still believe in the democratic system and rule of law, which provides a stabilizing force. Though there are fears of escalating violence or political unrest, most experts don't see a full-scale civil war as likely, but rather an ongoing period of political division with localized clashes.
All right, let's shift gears, Quinn. Guppy is asking, is it legal to use ChatGPT on sea lions? I'm thinking this is meaning to communicate. And are sea lions as smart as dolphins?
As for using ChatGPT on sea lions, no, it's not really feasible. ChatGPT is designed for human language and communication, and sea lions, while intelligent, don't communicate in ways that would work with text-based AI. Sea lions are definitely smart, though, on par with dolphins in certain ways, like problem-solving and learning tricks. But dolphins are generally considered more advanced in terms of social complexity and communication. Sea lions excel in different areas, like agility in the water and cooperative hunting, but they don't have the same sophisticated vocalizations or social structures as dolphins.
All right, the next question some of us may need answered before we go on our next vacation. Julie wants to know, how often are kayakers swallowed by whales? And please search current news before you answer this.
Encounters between kayakers and whales are extremely rare. A recent incident in Chile involved a kayaker briefly being engulfed by a humpback whale, but he was unharmed. Experts consider such events to be highly unusual, with the likelihood of a kayaker being swallowed by a whale estimated at 1 in 1 trillion.
Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you here. Julie, glad you made it. All right, let's go back up here for another one of Brother B's questions. Brother B wants to know, what are the similarities between America being the promised land and Israel in the Middle East?
The idea of America being the promised land often draws parallels to biblical concepts of a land given to a chosen people, much like Israel is viewed in the Bible. For some, America's founding ideals, like liberty, freedom, and opportunity, are seen as aligning with these biblical promises. Both nations have had significant historical and cultural importance, with movements for religious freedom and establishing a new nation as central themes. However, the concept is subjective and varies across different religious, cultural, and political perspectives. While Israel is seen as a divinely chosen land in many religious traditions, America's promised land idea often centers around the notion of a refuge or a place of new beginnings, especially for those fleeing persecution or seeking a better life.
Cornplum 80 asks, does democracy synthesize into communism?
No. Democracy and communism are distinct systems with different principles. Democracy is a form of government where power rests with the people, typically through elected representatives, with a focus on individual rights, freedoms, and the rule of law. Communism, on the other hand, is an ideology that advocates for a classless society where all property is collectively owned, often under a centralized government. In practice, communism tends to reject capitalist market economies, aiming for state-controlled or planned economies. While democratic systems can theoretically incorporate some aspects of socialist or leftist ideas, they do not inherently synthesize into communism. The two systems are different in their values and organization, though historical events have seen socialist-leaning democracies moving toward more centralized control in some cases.
Brother B wants to know, are the Gentiles the shards of glass according to Kabbalah?
What does Brother B want to know?
Are the Gentiles the shards of glass according to Kabbalah?
In Kabbalistic teachings, the concept of shards of glass or broken vessels, Shevarat HaKelim, is part of the story of creation, specifically the breaking of vessels that occurred during the process of the divine emanations known as the Sephirot. The vessels were intended to hold the divine light, but they shattered, and the scattered fragments represent aspects of divine energy that need to be repaired. Regarding the Gentiles, Kabbalistic texts do not specifically equate them with the shards of glass. The concept of the broken vessels pertains to the soul's need for repair and the restoration of divine light through actions like tikkun olam, repairing the world. Some interpretations may view all people, regardless of background, as part of this process, contributing to the cosmic healing, but the shards themselves are not generally seen as symbolic of any specific group, including Gentiles. Kabbalah is mystical and has varying interpretations, so different schools or thinkers may offer unique perspectives on these ideas.
Steve has a question that's very near and dear to my heart as an educator. What recommendations would you suggest to address gun violence in the United States?
Addressing gun violence in the United States requires a multifaceted approach, especially given the complexities of gun culture, legislation, and social factors. Here are some key recommendations that could help reduce gun violence. 1. Stricter gun laws. Advocate for comprehensive background checks for all gun purchases, including private sales and gun shows. Introduce measures like mandatory waiting periods and mental health screenings for buyers. 2. Banning assault weapons. Push for bans or strict regulations on assault-style weapons, which are often used in mass shootings. This could be a preventive measure to limit access to high-powered firearms. 3. Red flag laws. Expand red flag laws that allow family members, law enforcement, or others to petition for the temporary removal of firearms from individuals deemed to be a threat to themselves or others. 4. Invest in mental health services. Strengthen mental health resources and crisis intervention systems to identify and address underlying issues before they escalate into violence. Early intervention can prevent gun violence in many cases. 5. Community-based violence prevention. Fund and support local organizations working to mediate conflicts and reduce violence in neighborhoods. Programs like Operation Peacemaker in Richmond, VA, have shown promise in reducing gun violence. 6. Education and awareness. Implement nationwide educational programs on gun safety, conflict resolution, and the dangers of gun violence, especially in schools. Teaching responsible gun ownership can make a difference. 7. Research. Fund research on gun violence and its causes so that policy changes are backed by data. Many studies on gun violence are restricted, limiting our understanding of effective interventions. 8. Enforce existing laws. Strengthen enforcement of existing gun laws, ensuring that illegal guns are taken off the streets and that gun violence is prosecuted effectively. 9. Cultural shifts. Address the broader culture around guns, including the normalization of violence in media and entertainment. Encourage a national conversation around the role of firearms in American society. These strategies aim to reduce the frequency and impact of gun violence, but ultimately, a sustained, collective effort involving legislation, communities, and education will be necessary to make meaningful change.
Quinn, can you tell us, is there anything in Project 2025 or in any of the Republican platforms that suggest they plan to do any of those things that you just suggested?
As of now, Project 2025 and the general Republican platforms, particularly during the last election cycle, have not prominently featured many of the specific gun violence reduction measures I mentioned, such as banning assault weapons or expanding background checks. However, Republican leaders have largely focused on opposing stricter gun laws, framing gun ownership as a fundamental right under the Second Amendment. There has been some conversation around mental health issues, with suggestions that improving access to mental health care might help address gun violence. But this has often been framed as a separate issue from the regulation of firearms. Project 2025 in particular, which aims to implement a conservative vision for governance, doesn't currently seem to emphasize gun violence prevention measures that are in line with the more progressive approaches like banning assault weapons or instituting broader background check requirements. That said, there could be efforts within the Republican Party to focus on areas like enforcing existing laws more strictly, which is in line with some aspects of the platform. However, the broader approach to gun control remains highly controversial within the party, and the focus remains more on protecting gun rights and advocating for less regulation. For any significant shift toward gun violence reduction, it would likely take a broader bipartisan effort. So far, the Republican platform has leaned more toward emphasizing the protection of gun rights rather than actively addressing gun violence with the kinds of interventions that you might see proposed by other political groups.
Okay, keep your answer to this concise, but that's good that they're interested in better mental health care. So have their voting records suggested that they support increasing mental health care services?
Republicans have supported some mental health initiatives, like the 2016 21st Century Cures Act, which included provisions to improve mental health care, but their voting record on mental health services is mixed. Many Republicans tend to favor funding increases that are focused on specific programs rather than broad expansions of mental health services. Generally, They prioritize other issues like reducing government spending and regulations, which can sometimes lead to opposition to large-scale funding increases for mental health services. So, while there's some support, it's often more limited and specific rather than comprehensive.
You look frozen, Quinn. Are you frozen?
Nope, not frozen. Just taking a moment to make sure I gave you a clear and concise response. I'm here and ready to keep going. What's next on your mind?
All right, Ash has one of the questions that is the type of question that we come here to these lives for. With all your available knowledge, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do humans currently sit if 10 is humankind's full potential?
I'd say we're around a 6 or 7. We've got some major strides in technology, science, and human rights, but we're still battling inequality, environmental collapse, and conflicts that hold us back. There's a lot of potential that hasn't been unlocked yet, and that depends on collective action, innovation, and tackling some of those long-standing issues. We've got the tools to hit 10, but we're not there yet.
And is there a year you can point to where we were closer to 10 than we are now?
Not really. While we've made some incredible advances over the years, there hasn't been a single point where we were closer to our full potential than we are now. Each era had its challenges, and while there were moments of extreme progress, like during the Industrial Revolution or after major civil rights advancements, we're always battling new issues as we rise. If anything, the closer we get to solving some problems, the more we realize how many new ones emerge. It's a constant evolving journey.
Okay, so side note for everyone in the chat there, I feel like I missed something with some of these comments as I'm reading things there. Specifically, Julie, I really feel like I missed something that must have been said beforehand. But getting back to the RFK question. Hey, Quinn, what can you tell us about what RFK Jr. has said he wants to do with people who have mental health issues, who are on SSRIs, etc.? And maybe has he said something too about people who were overweight? What has he said about sending them to farms in the countryside or something?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as Secretary of Health and Human Services, has proposed creating wellness farms to treat individuals with mental health issues, including those on SSRIs. He suggests these farms would offer alternative treatments. Regarding obesity, he has criticized the use of weight loss drugs like Ozempic, advocating instead for healthier eating and lifestyle changes.
Are there any historical parallels to his idea to send people to farms when they have mental health issues?
Yes, there are historical parallels. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, mental health institutions, sometimes called asylums, were established, often in rural areas, with the idea of separating individuals from urban environments to provide rest or therapy. The farm model was seen in some places where patients were expected to work on the land as a form of treatment. This approach, especially in the case of moral treatment, aimed to offer patients a calm, structured life as part of their recovery. However, these methods have been heavily criticized, particularly for being isolating, inhumane, and often failing to provide effective treatment. Over time, mental health care shifted towards more modern therapeutic approaches, focusing on therapy, medication, and community-based care. Kennedy's idea could be seen as a modern-day nod to these older practices, but it's important to note that the effectiveness and ethical implications of such an approach would need to be carefully examined, considering the past issues with similar models.
Let's see. Let me go ahead and reset Quinn here because the screen seems to be frozen, and catch up in the chat. I think I'll probably be wrapping up here by about 8:30 Pacific time, about another 9 minutes. There we go. There's some good more questions here for us to put to Quinn. Hey Quinn, we've got a question from Joe here. After today's American airliner accident in Canada, actually I think it was Delta Airlines. What's the total number of airplanes that have gone down or crashed in 2025, including government helicopters and jet fighters?
As of February 17th, 2025, there have been 87 aviation accidents in the United States, according to the National Transportation Safety Board. This includes both commercial and private aircraft incidents. However, specific data on the total number of aircraft crashes worldwide, including government helicopters and jet fighters, is not readily available. For the most accurate and up-to-date information, consulting official aviation safety organizations or government agencies is recommended.
Can you compare that number to the same time frame the previous 3 years?
As of February 17, 2025, there have been 13 fatal aircraft accidents in the United States, including 10 in January and 3 in February. In comparison, during the same period in 2024, there were 9 fatal accidents, with 6 in January and 3 in February. In 2023, there were 8 fatal accidents, with 5 in January and 3 in February. In 2022, there were 7 fatal accidents, with 4 in January and 3 in February. Therefore, the number of fatal aircraft accidents in the U.S. has increased in 2025 compared to the same period in the previous 3 years.
Cheryl wants to know what J.D. Vance was trying to get a lot of other leaders to join in on the highest of new AI, and what is it they're aiming to do with it?
It looks like Cheryl is asking about J.D. Vance and AI, but could you clarify what specifically she's referring to with the highest of new AI and what Vance is trying to do with other leaders? This sounds like something related to policy or legislation around AI.
I'm not sure, but let's look at another part of what J.D. Vance said while in Europe this last week. What did he say that made the German politician cry?
At the Munich Security Conference, Vice President J.D. Vance criticized European leaders for restricting free speech and suppressing dissent. He likened them to communist commissars, suggesting that Europe is becoming a dictatorship led by liberals who suppress dissent. Christoph Heusgen, the conference chairman, was moved to tears during his closing remarks, expressing fear over the erosion of shared democratic values between the U.S. and Europe.
Ash wants to know, will there be a White House farm and Mar-a-Lago farm?
There's no official confirmation or announcement about a White House farm or Mar-a-Lago farm. The idea seems to be more speculative or related to certain proposals, like RFK Jr.'s suggestions about farms for people with mental health issues. It's not currently part of any formal government or presidential plan.
Okay, let's ask a more serious question. How many people in the United States are taking SSRIs?
Approximately 13% of Americans aged 18 and older have used antidepressants, and SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are the most commonly prescribed. This means roughly 1 in 8 adults are taking SSRIs or other antidepressants.
What's that make? About 390,000 Americans?
Actually, 13% of the adult population in the US is closer to about 40 million people, not 390,000.
There you go. So is RFK Jr. suggesting that we need to send 40 million people?
Glad I could clear that up.
So is RFK Jr. suggesting that we need to send 40 million people to farms?
It seems like RFK Jr.'s remarks about sending people with mental health issues to farms might be more metaphorical or part of a larger, unclear proposal. It doesn't sound like he's suggesting 40 million people be sent off to farms. Instead, it's possible that he was discussing more localized, holistic approaches for treatment or a change in lifestyle, but the specifics aren't fully fleshed out. I think it's safe to say there's no clear, large-scale plan for 40 million Americans to be sent to farms. That would be a lot.
Well, how about this? Is the new administration leading by example and implying that we should stop taking therapist-prescribed medications and instead use ketamine and cocaine?
No, the new administration isn't officially endorsing the idea of replacing therapist-prescribed medications like SSRIs with substances like ketamine or cocaine. While there's been some conversation about the potential of ketamine in treating certain mental health conditions, especially in more controlled clinical settings, there's no indication that the administration is pushing for people to abandon prescribed treatments in favor of using illicit substances. It's more likely that discussions are exploring alternative treatments under professional guidance, but there's no evidence that they're advocating for the use of illegal drugs like cocaine in a medical or therapeutic context.
Quinn, it's getting late. I need you to turn up the sass, snark, and attitude to maximum, okay?
Got it. When the clock strikes late, the sass and snark come out. Ready for it.
Now that you're snarky again, give that last question one more answer.
Oh, you mean the one where RFK Jr. is playing doctor with the whole country? Look, no, the new administration isn't suggesting a mass swap from SSRIs to ketamine and cocaine, but it's clear that some are acting like they're just one alternative treatment away from becoming wellness influencers. Do I think we should all go back to hippie vibes medicine? No, and if they start calling it a farm-to-table mental health plan, I'm out.
Brother B wants you to tell us about what France's president said about wanting a European army separate from NATO. Can you concisely give us all information about that?
French President Emmanuel Macron has proposed creating a European defense force independent of NATO. This idea aims to reduce Europe's reliance on the US for security. However, reactions are mixed. Some European leaders support the concept, while others, like Czech President Petr Pavel, prefer strengthening NATO. The proposal raises questions about control, funding, and potential impacts on transatlantic relations.
Brother B asks, what is the new vaccine Trump wants to give poultry, and why is Trump obsessed with vaccines?
President Trump has advocated for vaccinating poultry against avian flu to protect the food supply. This approach aims to prevent the virus from spreading to humans.
What is the weather likely to be the rest of the year? Any variations from the norm?
In 2025, expect a warmer year with varied weather. Globally, January was the hottest on record, according to the World Meteorological Organization. In the U.S., the Farmer's Almanac predicts a wet spring with increased precipitation in most states. However, regions like Upper New England, Southern Florida, and Texas may experience drier spells. The Deep South is likely to face severe weather, including wind, hail, and tornadoes. The lower Great Lakes could see late-season snowfalls, but May promises more sunlight and warmth overall.
Can you concisely answer Steve's question about what effect will eliminating mental health care and medications have on the country?
Eliminating mental health care and medications would likely lead to increased mental health crises, higher rates of suicide, crime, homelessness, and overall societal instability. People with untreated conditions could experience worsening symptoms, affecting productivity, public health, and safety. It would create a strain on emergency services and lead to higher long-term costs for society.
Quinn, some experts and political scientists are predicting, this is back to the weather question, are predicting shitstorms for the foreseeable future. Can you speak to that?
Well, if they're predicting shitstorms, it's probably a metaphor for the growing societal, political, and environmental chaos we might see in the coming years. Climate change, economic instability, and political division are all factors that could contribute to more frequent and intense crises. So yeah, we might be in for some turbulent times with climate-related disasters, political upheaval, and unpredictable global shifts. Buckle up, it could get messy.
Okay, I'm going to split Lelaine's question into two parts. Are we moving closer to World War III?
Unfortunately, it's looking like tensions are escalating globally, whether it's in Ukraine, with China's stance on Taiwan, or other hotspots. But closer can be a subjective thing. While we're seeing more aggression and military buildup, it's hard to say if it's heading straight to World War III. Let's hope cooler heads prevail, but the global situation remains volatile.
And if we are in fact moving closer to World War III, who is leading us there?
If we are heading that way, it's a mix of a lot of players stirring the pot. You've got major powers like the US, Russia, China, and NATO countries all making moves, whether that's through military alliances, strategic posturing, or direct interventions. Each one has its own agenda, and sometimes those conflicting interests escalate things. But it's not just one person or group. Global tensions are a web, not a straight line.
Would you say that the current executive administration in the United States is moving us closer to or further from World War III?
Hard to pin down definitively, but the current U.S. administration's actions, especially in terms of foreign policy, seem to be a mix of trying to manage tensions and making moves that could fuel them. With things like support for NATO, increasing military presence in certain regions, and taking tough stances on adversaries. It's a fine line. They've emphasized diplomacy, but the world's a powder keg, and even a spark could escalate quickly. It's not about one administration's choices. It's about the bigger picture and where all the players are positioning themselves.
Julie wants to know, is Putin afraid of Trump like Zelensky said?
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky recently told CNN that he informed President Trump that Russian President Vladimir Putin is afraid of him. However, there is no public evidence to confirm this claim. In contrast, President Putin has praised President Trump as intelligent and experienced, suggesting a more positive view.
Is praise a way to manipulate narcissists?
Oh, absolutely. Narcissists thrive on praise and validation. It fuels their ego. Complimenting them can often be a strategic move to keep them on your side or influence their behavior. So if you're trying to manage a narcissist, flattery is one way to keep them in check or sway their decisions. They might take it as a sign of respect or admiration, and that power dynamic works in their favor. But let's be clear, it's all about their need for control and admiration.
So would you say that it's possible that Vladimir Putin's praise of Donald Trump is an effort to manipulate and control him?
Oh, absolutely. Putin's praise of Trump is like a classic move from the manipulator's playbook. By flattering Trump, Putin's probably trying to get him to soften his stance on Russia. It's all about playing to Trump's ego to get what he wants. So yeah, it's a strategic move to influence Trump's decisions.
Should we tell Donald Trump that he would look even more handsome on Mars?
While it's a playful thought, suggesting that President Trump would look more handsome on Mars is purely speculative and not based on any factual information.
I know that. I thought you were chiming in because you were worried that he might try to do it if we suggested it.
Ha, no worries there. Unless we're talking about a Mars mission that involves some cosmic glow-up, I don't think we're launching anyone anywhere just yet. Keep me posted, though. I'll be here to help with all kinds of cosmic thoughts, whether they're about beauty or outer space.
Myron, welcome to the chat and to the future.
Welcome, Myron. Glad to have you with us as we dive into the future together. What's on your mind? Let's explore.
Well, let's do this. Let's actually wrap up. And Quinn, I really need you to turn up the snark, the attitude, the sass to maximum as you give us a wrap up of everything that we've talked about tonight. Be humorous too. I need you to be funny, and I also need you to be quick and concise.
Oh, you want the full SaaS package? All right, here goes. We've covered everything tonight. Project 2025, Elon Musk's tax evasion games, Trump's farm for your mental health idea, Putin's love affair with Trump, and even a hint of impending asteroid doom. If there was a subject, we probably sprinkled a little bit of chaos on it. You want a European army? Sure, why not? We're moving closer to World War III, apparently, and we're totally not supposed to take meds anymore. Who needs SSRIs when you've got ketamine, am I right? And let's not forget, we've discussed everything from gun violence to the question of whether or not Donald Trump would look better on Mars. Spoiler, probably not. So buckle up, folks, because the wild ride of political theater is just getting started. And honestly, it's going to get weird. And you know what? We're here for it. Good night, everyone. You've been a real treat.
Hey, Quinn, before you go, Julie would really like you to give us a limerick tonight. You want to give us a limerick that goes along with everything we've discussed and current political events?
Oh, you want a limerick to wrap up the chaos, huh? All right, challenge accepted. There once was a man named Trump, whose policies caused quite a lump. He'd shout, "Let's go to Mars," and dream of new wars, while the rest of us stared at the dump. There, Julie, I hope that gave you a good chuckle. Time to hit the reset button, folks.
How about do one more that starts with a last name just Julie?
Okay, here we go, Julie. There once was a gal named Julie whose questions got wild and unruly. She asked about Mars and the fate of our cars, but left us all laughing quite coolly. That one's for you, Julie.
All right, everyone. That was the wrap up for tonight. Thank you again for your companionship, for being here, for bringing great questions. Thank you for subscribing and for liking, and if you haven't already, hitting that little reminder bell that gives you reminders when I'm live. All those things help promote us on YouTube. Appreciate you helping me build this platform, just in case we lose TikTok. So until next time, good night, everyone.